The Canucks and Flames swung a deal Wednesday. Elias Lindholm going to the Canucks. Andrei Kuzmenko heading to the Flames along with a first-round pick in 2024. And a couple of blue line prospects, including Hunter Brustevich, who is third in scoring in the Ontario Hockey League and first among defensemen. Leads us to Harvey's Hot Takes with our opinionist Bryan Hayes. It's always great to see Bryan. And, you'll love this. You guys had Jim Rutherford on your radio show on Wednesday afternoon, and he was playing coy, saying maybe a deal might happen sooner rather than later. Little did we know it was going to happen an hour later. What are your initial thoughts on Elias Lindholm heading to Vancouver? Does this put them over the top, in your opinion, Bryan, and make them a true Cup contender?
Absolutely, Jay. I think they were a Cup contender before this, and now I think the Canucks are officially in it to win it. I don't think this is about them chasing a President's Trophy or just getting to the playoffs and looking for playoff experience. This is Jim Rutherford, Patrick Allvin, and the Vancouver Canucks saying, we believe you can go chase a Stanley Cup. Right? It doesn't matter what the rest of the hockey world thinks. It doesn't matter what FanDuel thinks in terms of odds or what have you. This is about the Vancouver Canucks surveying what they've done up to this point, the All-Star break, where they are first overall in the NHL, and saying, again, this is not just about pushing Edmonton back or trying to get in and hoping you win a series and feel good about your future. They have blown through a number of stop signs here, right, Jay? Like before the season, it was uncertain if they would be a playoff team. And they said, we're going right through the idea of competing for a playoff spot, right through the idea of competing for home ice in the first round, right through the idea of possibly being competitive in the first round. And they're going all the way almost to Cup or bust type mentality. And I love it. I love the way that Vancouver's operated this year, going out and getting Zadorov earlier this year. Now you bring in Lindholm. Their top six is loaded with talent and versatility. They've got depth. They've got speed. They got a great defense. They've got one of the 2 or 3 best goalies in the game right now. Rick Tocchet's been a stud behind the bench. If you're in Vancouver, you have to be loving this. And I think if you're a Canadian hockey fan in general, you're loving that Vancouver's legit. Edmonton's certainly legit. I think it's time for Winnipeg to get active before the trade deadline. I think they will. Like, those are 3 great tickets the Canadian hockey fan's going to have out west. And, again, Vancouver's sitting here saying, we don't care that Edmonton's won 16 in a row. We don't care if people are doubting us outside of this building. Within this building, we believe we can win a Stanley Cup, and I love that message that they're sending right now.
As for the Calgary Flames, you know what? I'm so impressed with Craig Conroy's first deal, that Toffoli deal. Yegor Sharangovich has fit in really well with Calgary. He's done excellent. So how do you feel about the second big deal for Craig Conroy? How do you feel about what he got back for Elias Lindholm?
Well, for starters, I like that he continues to be willing to deal from within the division, right? These are big rivals, Jay, as you know. Like, he's making multiple deals with the Canucks, and he's doing that because he believes it's going to improve his team. So I like what they've done here. Clearly, they couldn't get a deal done. You know, there have been many reports they tried to get Lindholm signed long-term. This made it clear it wasn't going to happen, so you got to put him to market. Kuzmenko is a really good, talented player. They got to unlock consistency. They got to find a role for him short-term and long-term, and they get a first-round pick and prospects here. I think it's a good deal. I like that Calgary's proactive here. I'm guessing it's the beginning of more deals. They have to figure out if they're going to completely blow this up or just try to retool and transition in the future. But the next question will be, what do they do with Tanev? What do they do with Hanifin? What do they do with Markstrom? Lindholm's a really good player and a really good piece. But I like that they got a deal that they felt was appropriate in terms of value, and they didn't wait all the way up to the deadline and possibly fall short. You get a deal done, you got a good player, jump into the pool, and Craig Conroy and company have done that in Calgary.
Plus, they really did us a solid in terms of content this week in the All-Star Week, right, Bryan? Like, they really helped us out, both those GMs. So shout out to Patrick Allvin, Jim Rutherford, and, of course, Craig Conroy. Bryan, last week you had a take on Sidney Crosby that made some noise in the Pittsburgh media. We're going to revisit that hot take. You said Sidney Crosby needed to get out of Pittsburgh. Timmy Benz of the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review had this to say about your take. Hayes is right in at least one sense. Crosby, especially with Mario Lemieux no longer owning the team, doesn't owe the Penguins anything. However, this is where I take issue with Bryan's stance. Crosby doesn't owe the NHL or league's media anything either. Crosby shouldn't feel obligated to keep chasing cups in other cities so TSN can keep chasing the story. Should Crosby just want to fade away in Pittsburgh, he should be allowed to do that too, guilt-free. Now, Tim Benz also spoke, Brian, about the fact that the roster is built in such a way that Crosby wanted it. He wanted Malkin there. He wanted Letang there. So how do you respond to Tim Benz, Bryan Hayes?
Well, thank you, Tim Benz, for spreading the love around Pittsburgh. Clearly, I won't be stepping foot in that city anytime soon. Listen, I appreciate that people in Pittsburgh don't want to see this happen. Of course they don't. Just like people in New England didn't want to see Tom Brady leave. And people in Cleveland didn't want to see LeBron James leave. I totally understand where people in Pittsburgh are coming from. And I understand why Sid, of course, said, hey, I'm here right now. Bring Malkin back. Bring Letang back. Of course, he wants to win in Pittsburgh. Ideally, he would stay there his whole career and continue to win. What I'm saying is I'm facing facts. That's not going to happen. And yes, he can do whatever he wants with his life, whatever he wants with his career. I just think it would be a beautiful final chapter to see Sidney Crosby get back into the front burner of hockey, where Connor McDavid has taken over the front pages, Austin Matthews, what the Vancouver Canucks are doing, other teams around the league, McKinnon, Makar, Kucherov, etc. I want to see Sid at the forefront. I think he deserves that. I think he's had a great, great career. And if he got out of Pittsburgh, like I said last week, chased a cup, played a massive role in a cup, he could still win a Conn Smythe on a cup-winning team. You're talking top 5 player all time, maybe top 4. I think it's worth it for him to pursue that. I'm not saying he will. I'm not going to predict his future. I was pleading for it, and I don't think I'm alone. I know people in Pittsburgh don't want to hear it. I'll bet you a lot of people outside of Pittsburgh absolutely do.
And, you know, he's got this season and then one more year on his deal. Then he's an unrestricted free agent. It is truly going to be fascinating to follow him over the course of the next season and a bit. Bryan Hayes, you know, just like Harvey's has been serving up delicious burgers to Canadians for 65 years, this guy's been serving up hot takes to Canadians and Pittsburgh residents since 1983. You're the best, buddy. We'll chat with you next week.
You got it, Jay.
Hot Takes is brought to you by Harvey's. Crispy Chicken BLT, topped your way. It's a beautiful thing.